do that.
Yes, and then you just have to set it in there, set it on that bottom.
I don't have to slide it sideways anymore, do I?
No, and you just kind of gotta,
How do you know it's good?
you just kind of gotta peek in there. So you want to try it, or I think it's pretty good, but you can, that top one will slide off.
Oh yeah, that's good. Thanks, David.
You're still in Durham, during all the arts. I can't rave about it enough. Even if you're not a real artist, and I think academics are still, when you have all the academics.
Got it. It's not ideal, but.
It's on juice. Original Durham Boston. But I think it was built in like 1905. Very, very. I love those old buildings. It's been fun for him because it's just right downtown. And so, especially the older he got, he was in 6th grade, not as much, but the older he got, he was like, I'm just going to hang out downtown and wait until this game starts or this thing happens. They get to go down to like the Carolina Theater a lot, and they're building a new school. They'll move all the kids out of downtown. They'll move them all to downtown. Let's do that. Because VSA's kind of like, it's artsy, it's funky, it's urban, and now it's just beyond
It's also really weird when your high school ends up moving. Is that what that's what happened in my high school? So like where I went to high school doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So it's like yeah, like
the connection.
yeah. So you know, there's something kind of nostalgic about that.
Hi there.
Thank you.
Hi. Welcome everybody to the November 7th East Chapel Hill Rotary Club meeting. My name is Rebecca Perea. I've been a member since August 1st, so a newbie. Today is the birthday of Marie Curie, 1867, and probably a favorite here, she's a favorite of mine, Joni Mitchell, 1943. Another interesting thing here is that on November 7th, 1916, over 100 years ago, Jeanette Rankin became the first woman elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, any federal, actually, position in the U.S., first woman, as a Republican from Montana, and remains the only woman to represent Montana in the U.S. Congress today. Okay, so who is wondering who this guy is? So I wanted to talk a little bit about Bad Bunny, because Bad Bunny was invited to be the halftime show at the Super Bowl in 2026. And he is Puerto Rican, and I am Puerto Rican. Raise your hand if you had never heard of Bad Bunny before today. Excellent, good. So, a few, maybe like 10 people. So I wanted to give you a quiz, but first, for context, he was born in March 1994. He's 31 years old, young millennial. He's a Puerto Rican singer, record producer, and is considered one of the best Latin rappers of all time. He has 4 albums hitting #1 on the Billboard 200, including having the first all Spanish language album to reach #1 in Billboard history. He has 3 Grammy Awards, 11 Latin Grammy Awards, 8 Billboard Music Awards, and he was the Billboard Artist of the Year in 2022. He's also been in a few movies. Can anyone name any movies he's been?
Bullet Train?
That's right, Bullet Train. Happy Gilmore too, that's right.
Was he in Breaking Bad? Did he have a cameo in Breaking Bad?
I don't know, I haven't heard about Breaking Bad. But I guess I haven't seen Caught Stealing is another one, but I haven't seen that one. He's also hosted Saturday Night Live twice. And on September 20th last month, he finished a 31-date residency in San Juan. He's about to go on a world tour, and you know about the Super Bowl. So let's do a quiz here. By the way, that hat he's wearing is called a pava, P-A-V-A. It's a very typical hat that's historically been worn by Puerto Rican farmers like sugarcane and coffee farmers, and it's made out of, does anyone know? Palm tree leaves. Yeah. Okay, so first question. Bad Bunny's real name, what do you think? Definitely not Ricky Martin Jr. So he actually picked his stage name because of that. That's actually him when he was a kid wearing a costume. And I keep hearing he had like a angry face because he hated the costume. It reminds me of that Christmas movie, A Christmas Story. But he looks like he's smiling there. But anyway, that's where Bad Bunny came from.
What was the answer?
C.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. So the answer will be in yellow. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Before becoming an international superstar, Bad Bunny worked. What do you think? That's right. He bagged groceries and he uploaded his songs to SoundCloud during his breaks. Bad Bunny is known for his humanitarian work in Puerto Rico. Which one of these did he actually do?
D. Oh.
G.
I'll give up.
A is the answer. All right, two more. Which one of these is true about Bad Bunny? If you said 80, you're right. From 2020 to 2022. I looked at the last couple of years, and he's like 2 or 3 to like Taylor Swift and I forget who else. And the last one. What should we expect during the Super Bowl concert?
C.
Definitely not A. That's right, C. So that means yo hago lo que me da la gana, which means I do what I want. So now you know what that means when it shows up during the Super Bowl. Well done. Hopefully, for those of you who don't know him, you can Google him and listen to a couple of things before the show. Okay, so first, do we have any guests? Yes, sir. You are the guest.
This is your 3rd visit, and I think you're going to get four brothers, and they do HVAC and various things like that.
1991 grad of Chapel Hill High.
Welcome, Dave. Yes, Jennifer.
This is my guest, Ellen O'Brien, and it's her 2nd visit.
Right.
Other guests. Visiting Rotarians. I will not. Don't forget about your dad, Rebecca. So yes, this is my father, Dr. Ramon Padrilla. And he's visiting from Puerto Rico. He's been here for a couple weeks, and he is a 3-time Rotarian president.
Wow.
He joined in 1979, and he is also a Paul Harris Fellow, and he is the reason why I'm a Rotarian today. Any announcements? Lorenzo.
Yeah, just a reminder, if you guys have in your lives a high school junior, ask them to apply for RILA, which is the Rotary Youth Leadership Academy. It's an award. And anyway, it's a great leadership weekend experience and is fully paid for by Rotary. You can contact me for more details.
Yes, sir.
If you have, I don't know how many of you get Carolina stories on your, in an email. There's a story today about Dr. Simon. And it is a great story about his Nobel Prize and all he's done and building this place and what he's dedicated to students and science and integrity. So I recommend it to you. If you don't have it, let me know and I'll shoot it out. But it's yes.
Yeah, we are going to send it by email to everybody.
Okay. It's worth the read.
I wanted you and your father to say something about whether Puerto Rico should be a state.
Yeah, my family has been pro-statehood from the time I can remember, but I don't know if my dad has changed his mind. He was my influence. I don't know if that's changed lately. Good question. Yes.
I'd like to congratulate East Chapel Hill Rotary on partnering with the Carver Police Force. We are doing an event with them on the 15th of November at the library in Carver. This community outreach is to support pregnant at-risk women in our community, and Felix, with generosity, we've donated 10 car seats that grow with the infants. Thanks to Christy, those car seats are already at the police department. Goodness knows what they're doing with them there. But we need 4 or 5 volunteers for the 15th. Between 11 and 2 p.m. So come and see me afterwards if you wish to volunteer.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, well, I will pass the fine basket, and I believe Jim Hefner will introduce our, or no, Jim. Okay.
Felix, I have it.
Thanks.
Nice job. I'm putting in a buck for you.
How's everybody doing?
You just put a QR code on that.
I'm telling you, right?
I hope everybody is having a great week. And if not, I have something to cheer you up. On Friday, December 5th, we have our annual holiday party at the Carolina Inn. At the Carolina Inn, and it's gonna be a great season event. To give you the score, we have 90 already saying yes, but we still have 80 still sitting on the fence. And we want you to come celebrate with us. So please RSVP, and for those who like to sign up the old classic way, I have a sign-up sheet that I'll circulate. And as we celebrate this season, let's not forget who truly we are. Service above self. So if you can, please donate to help our communities in Jamaica and other Caribbean countries to continue recovering from the devastation of Hurricane Melissa. And Randy, I don't know whether Randy is here. Randy reminded me to announce that next Friday we'll have some drinks after our meeting at the Casual Pint. And I see we have our mayor and our member, Jess, just came in. Let's give a clap. And with that, I'll call upon Jennifer to introduce our guest today.
Today. I first just want to apologize for my, what seems like very casual attire, but when I knew we had this world-renowned exercise physiologist coming today, I decided to up my game and get in a workout earlier today. So, and also after I worked out, I left and went home and had a cocktail. But not the kind of cocktail you're thinking. It was H2O, a little lemon juice, some electrolytes, maybe some branched chain amino acids, and topped it off with a little creatine. So, if you don't even know what I'm talking about, you are in for a treat. Today, with our speaker, Dr. Abbie Smith-Ryan, you have her bio in front of you. Please give a warm East Chapel Hill Rotary to our speaker.
All right, good afternoon. Can you hear me all? Okay, so you know, I always know I'm in the right room when I am not the smartest person. I've been told you are very inquisitive, and so really happy to be here. So I'm going to go through some different tips today with the idea to stimulate some questions. And I will also say thanks to Penny who walked me in, and I was very envious of her sneakers. I should have worn my workout attire as well. So let me get this going here. All right, so I'm here because of my lovely conversation with Aubrey a few months ago, where I was invited to speak about my research, and then we kind of hit it off from there, and I had a huge passion for translating information. I run a lab specifically focused on exercise and nutrition to optimize health. My early career focused on men and women, and really over the last 8 years I've focused on women's health across the lifespan. I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, but I also want to note that as a high schooler, this did not go into our lovely conversation I had with Ted, but I was a Rotary Scholarship recipient, and yes, back in Iowa, which is where I grew up, and had a huge passion for service and translation, so thank you for letting me spend some of my day today. And this is a shout out to my lab group. We are all about translating and bringing this information to the community. Okay, so I wanted to think about what would hit home for all of you, and in my world, as an exercise physiologist and sport nutritionist, everything's so overwhelming. I need to exercise every day, I need to eat the right foods, all the things, but how do we make it more digestible and feasible and really based on evidence? And that's where my line of work comes in, is we don't know what we should do, but do we have the time and do we actually do it? And so I want to give you some science tips you can take home and hopefully stimulate some questions that you might have. So I know there's lots of doctors in the room, but I would love to debate you on this, and maybe you've seen this quote, that exercise is the best medicine, and if we could put it in a pill, it would be the most prescribed medication. Now, in reality, we do need medication, but the combination of exercise with a lot of health aspects can make a dramatic difference, but it's hard to get started. Most often we're tired, we don't have time. So I want to give you some tips here. So although, I don't know if you guys know the general recommended amounts of exercise you're supposed to get, it's 150 minutes per week. Do you guys do that? Raise your hand if you get 150 minutes per week. Okay, you all have more time than I do. I don't even get 150 minutes per week. So let's break that down a little bit. All you need is a minimum of 11 minutes a day, but the more you do, the larger impact it has on mortality. So if you are doing more, that's great. The other side is if you haven't started, you don't need to do 150 minutes of exercise per week. We just need some. And we know that it directly delays mortality. And some of the work that we've looked at is how do we actually delay mortality and what approaches do we take? So just a couple things to think about. Some of this depends on training age. How long have you been exercising? I fell in love with exercise early in my life. I heard about, some people have been lifting weights for 45 years. If you've been doing it for a while, you need a little bit more. If you've never started, a little bit, as little as I'll show you, 5 minutes a day can have a big impact. And then what are our goals? So if you told me and said, hey, Abbie, I want to be stronger and I want to look better, my exercise recommendations for you would be different versus I want to feel better and be able to chase my grandkids. That's different. Or I want to, live longer and not lose my breath going up the stairs. And so a good friend of mine who has a couple books out, just a quote here I thought would be helpful. It's not dependent on the time you spend, but more about the consistency and the intensity. And that's where a lot of my work comes in. I was a collegiate distance runner, so I love exercise. However, what we see now, it's more about intensity, and I want to show you what that looks like. And we've done different intensity-related exercise in cancer patients, in knee osteoarthritis, in perimenopause. And so have you guys seen this rule? Oh, we should do 10,000 steps a day. Anyone heard this? Yeah. The funny thing is this is actually a gimmick. It was based on a fitness watch that said, it's called the 10,000 step meter. And what we know, what the research shows, is that you really need a minimum of 4,400 steps to delay mortality. But more so, mortality rates kind of level off at 7,500 steps. So how many of you get more than 10,000 steps a day? You guys are a very active group. Yes, okay, that's great. And there's a lot of benefit from getting more steps. But you don't have to do that. So when we think about days, or I think about often days where my watch yells at me and tells me to stand up because I've been at my computer, like trying to get a minimum of 5,000 steps, and then whatever you do, try and do it consistently. And so, especially if you've done 7,500 and you leave today and say, okay, I'm going to do 9,000 and I'm going to stick with that every day. That consistency can be really helpful. Okay, the other really interesting data that this came up in actually a class I was teaching this week that I thought I would share is after you eat, going for a short walk, so the data shows about 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, can significantly improve blood glucose regulation, so blood sugar. I needed this reminder. I don't know about you guys, but this time zone thing is killing me at night. It just makes me want to go to sleep. So a good reminder after we have lunch today, take a little 5-minute walk. What I do with most of my team is if I have a meeting, I make them walk with me. We walk and talk. So a nice little reminder that a little bit of movement can actually have a big impact on our blood glucose and regulation. Okay, so if you want to change your life, get consistent. I think you guys could probably teach me a lot about that looking at your answers here today. But this is the case for exercise, is doing what goals that you can stick with. And then a little bit about nutrition. I think the interesting thing about nutrition is that because we all eat, most of us think we're experts, and I'm sure there are some experts in here, but it also doesn't have to be complicated. And so one of the things that I wanted to share with you, have you guys seen the literature on exercise snacks? So this is really cool when we looked at the literature of thinking, okay, I used to think I had to train all of the time. New literature shows that an exercise snack, an example of that, is 1 minute, or in this case, 60 steps as quickly as possible, 3 times a day, can significantly alter mortality and support cardiovascular health, cardiometabolic health. And so this is really important as we age, or I think about different life stages. If you make effort to do a burst of exercise a couple times a day, it actually can significantly improve your health. And so I always think about this, I'm going to go up the stairs, or I'm going to do a quick, sometimes I'll do something in between my meetings, so a big burst of activity can help. And it can offset prolonged sitting. So like in my job, if you're sitting a lot, you still need to move, and you don't have to move consistent, or you don't have to move forever, you just need that short period of time. Okay, and then a lot of my work focuses on intensity-driven exercise, not because, maybe you guys have heard zone 2 exercise, that's kind of moderate intensity walking. That's great, but what we're seeing in a quarter of the time, you can see the same health benefits. And so this I just wanted to show you is a much bigger study that demonstrated that intensity directly impacts cardiovascular disease. So I know many of you are MDs in here, and the number one reason most of us have problems as we age is related to heart disease. And intensity can actually significantly lower heart disease effects, and this is short, so accumulating up to 5 minutes of intense work can reduce overall health effects. And I say that usually the first question I get is, well, what's intensity? I can't go hard like I used to, but it's all relative to baseline fitness. So for instance, we've done a project with endometrial cancer and bone marrow transplant patients and even knee osteoarthritis. It's all based on initial fitness. So a big burst, usually something that you could not sustain for longer than a minute, and then you rest. And you do it again, and you rest. So it's all based on initial fitness. Okay, and then most of us know what high intensity interval training is now, but I wanted to just give you a couple examples of what this would look like. And the best part about exercise is there doesn't have to be specific rules. It can be, longer bouts, let's say 4 minutes, and then you rest, 4 minutes and rest. What we often use in the lab is 1 minute on, 1 minute of rest. Another more common used protocol is 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. And so think about it, like sometimes we have people climb the stairs to raise their heart rate and then bring it back down, or a bike, or a swim. And then I'd be remiss to not talk about resistance training. So this is the aerobic component, and this is the protocol that continues to show really beneficial effects. I always say you can do anything for a minute. So 10 times of 1 minute hard, 1 minute easy, and that's any mode. And then we are also including resistance training. And so that resistance training is going to build the bone and the skeleton, and typically we try and do that twice a week. I wanted to show you in the consistent steps. So one method we're using in the lab is called high intensity resistance training, and we've done this for several protocols. It's very effective. And really what it is, it's a slightly heavier load, so 6 to 8 repetitions, and then you rest for 30 seconds. So if I'm doing a squat, or let's say a leg press, I would do my set, I would rest 30 seconds and do it again, and do that 3 times. And then when I move on to my next exercise, let's say lunges, I would wait 2 minutes in between. So it's short rest period, it gets that cardiovascular load, and it's a whole body workout within 20 to 30 minutes. So again, you don't need an hour or 2 in the gym. And so this, I'll share my slides. They're just some examples of what we show people. It's a total body, kind of overall body workout that can be done in your garage, or it can be done in a gym. It doesn't need a lot of equipment. Okay, so when we think about priorities, just move, starting 10 minutes, 5,000 steps at a minimum. Obviously, if you've already done that, recommend then focusing on intensity, increasing your intensity. And I know you all are looking at me quite intensely right now. The other thing, it's a good reminder, like I could probably go a little bit more intense, like a little bit more focused, and you'll get a bigger effect. And then lastly, like thinking about adding volume and then that resistance training, especially as we age. So one thing, I only have so much time up here, but hopefully we can get to questions. Muscle is the organ of longevity. And did you guys know this is National Muscle Health Month? Add it to the list, yes, of all the national months. But when we look at the most important organ, muscle continues to rise to the top. And so when I think about things like high intensity work and resistance training, we're worried about building the muscle versus losing fat. That's the conversation, but it's really about muscle size and quality, which then supports bone. Okay, so then habits take time. I just wanted to remind you a couple of these things, that actually nutrition habits form faster. We need a little bit more time for exercise. It looks like you guys have good habits in place, but it's sometimes a good reminder, so be patient. So then what should I eat? This is a $1 million question. I'm going to try and make it simple. Obviously, everyone is individual. But first and foremost, eat less processed foods. Eat more plants. So I always tell people, like, if you're not adding vegetables to your breakfast, you should. It doesn't have to be a lot, but usually we think about other foods, but adding a vegetable to each meal is really important for fiber. Fiber is not talked about enough. It significantly delays a number of diseases, particularly in the gut and colon as we age. Most of us are now, we know more about protein. Protein's everywhere. It's even at Starbucks. Did you guys see the new Starbucks? But we need to eat high quality protein, so whole foods can really maximize the way we utilize protein. So as we age, our muscles use the amino acids differently. So we need more protein and at least more evenly spaced throughout the day. I'll show you that. Whole grains, that fiber component. And then something that's not talked enough about is essential fatty acids. So essential fats, things like omega-3 and omega-6, directly impact our brain health and our inflammation. It's difficult to get some of those through the diet, but things like salmon is one of those. Walnuts is another. I always remember a walnut because it looks like a brain. It can help your brain. And those fats, the other good thing, it helps with hair, skin, and nails. And then I know we're all different ages in here, but the other important thing about essential fats is it supports hormone development. And so a lot of my work focuses on midlife women who are having hormonal changes, or as we age with testosterone, estrogen. Essential fats are a really important component of that. Okay, so then I love that a picture's worth a million words right here, and there's really good data that suggests that really just spacing out our protein can have a big impact on energy, body composition, and muscle. Can you guys see okay? Okay, so it's not necessarily about eating massively more amounts of protein, but eating them specifically earlier in the day. I don't know about you guys, but many of us, especially as we age, our appetites go down, and we're worried about our waistline. But in reality, having a higher protein and something like a vegetable early in the morning can stimulate metabolism and support both muscle and bone. Okay, another really interesting concept that I like to show people is what we call a carb to protein ratio. And so carbs are amazing. I probably don't have to tell you all that or tell you to eat them. What I'm not going to do is to tell you not to eat them, but what we should do is pair them with a protein. So let's say one of my favorite things I see here is cornbread. I love some cornbread. Let's say I have some carbohydrate or a pasta and it's 50 grams of carbohydrate. Then I should have around 25 or 30 grams of protein with that carbohydrate. It helps us digest and metabolize that better, and it helps with body composition. And so there's really good data that suggests don't worry about not eating things, just pairing that protein with your carbohydrate. And so you can start to look different at some of our foods, and I'll give you some examples or we can talk through that. And that's particularly effective for women. The ladies in the room, if you ever think about, obviously, love men and women, but men seem to respond no matter what they do. They eat a little less, they lose weight, they exercise, they respond, and women take a little bit harder. This is a good approach specifically for women too, pairing those proteins with our carbohydrates. This is a study I did a long time ago, and some of my work is specifically on dietary supplements, and that's not because we shouldn't eat whole food, but in reality it's supplementing a healthy diet. And I just wanted to share this. It was looking at meal replacement, which about 5 years ago, before all of our weight loss drugs, was second for weight loss right behind bariatric surgery. And when we think about a meal replacement in this particular study, it was using a 1 to 2 carb to protein ratio, and it was high in fiber. And so what it did was bring that carb to protein ratio down. And there were significant improvements in body composition, but also in strength and, I guess I don't have it up here, but lipids and triglycerides and overall health because of that fiber. So what I'm trying to share is it doesn't have to be a massive nutritional overhaul. It can be some small changes where we blend that protein with the carbohydrate and then remembering that fiber. Okay, so here's a simple takeaway for your nutrition. So eat 30 grams of protein at each meal and snack, add a veggie and fruit if you can. And then we didn't talk about water, but generally we need about half our body weight of water as a minimum. And then if you sweat more, you need more. And these are some really good starting points. We could get into the nuance, but this is a good reminder for most people. Okay, and then before we open it up to questions, I want to talk about dietary supplements. So I will say, in my lab, we research dietary supplements and ingredients, not because they're better than whole food, but oftentimes when we're exercising or when we're trying to optimize, there's certain things we can't get through our food. There's very few supplements that work. I'm going to talk just about a couple of them. One of the things that has the most science is omega-3, so our essential fatty acids. Now, anyone in here eat salmon every single day? Usually I get a couple. If you eat salmon every single day, you don't need an omega-3 fish oil supplement. But if you don't eat salmon every single day, essential fats are really difficult to get in the diet. And we know that they're related to muscle protein building, and they are also related to muscle soreness and inflammation. And most of you have, you guys are very intelligent. Do you remember the phospholipid bilayer that you learned about a very long time ago in all of our cells? Every cell in the body has a lipid layer, and essential fatty acids go in and rebuild that layer. There's actually some really interesting data that it works in the same pathway as like an ibuprofen and NSAID. So over time, it can help with inflammation, soreness. Also some interesting components around brain health, mood, and depression, anxiety. Another one that most of us know about is vitamin D. So vitamin D affects every part of the body. I love that our testing now, like this is something that you should get tested by your provider and you can see how that changes. This is something that's very difficult to get through the diet. So usually some sort of dietary supplement. One thing we don't often hear is that vitamin D should be taken with food. You should have fat in your belly, otherwise you can't absorb it. So if you're taking your vitamins in the morning on an empty stomach, you should rethink that. And generally, 41% of people in America have low vitamin D or inadequate amounts. Now, usually you can get this measured and see what your dose needs to be, and this is common practice. But without knowing any of your values, usually an easy starting point is 2,000 IUs that you can take with food. This impacts everything from your muscle to your immune function to your nervous system. Okay, magnesium. I don't know if you guys have seen the science on this, but very fascinating and aligns with some of the work we're doing specifically in women. So estrogen impacts the ability to uptake and utilize magnesium. Same thing happens with age. And so I don't know if you guys have any trouble sleeping. Maybe not since you're doing 150 minutes of exercise, which is the best way to target sleep. But the research coming out on magnesium is very fascinating. Do you guys know where you get magnesium in the diet? So nuts is one, and I always tell my undergrad students, if you tell me leafy greens, you'll be right every time. But how many leafy greens are you going to consume? And so nuts and leafy greens is where we get our primary stores of magnesium, but it's hard to get enough of them. And you can see, even related to central nervous system function and muscle and inflammation. So a couple of notes here, it's been shown to improve sleep time and quality. Usually that's magnesium glycinate. A lot of forms are magnesium oxide, which helps keep you regular, so just be careful if you take too much of that. And then really interesting on blood pressure and those individuals specifically related to some what we're studying. Improvements in magnesium can lower the effects of hot flashes and depression, which is again coming from the diet, things that we actually can control. Okay, so a lot of my work is on creatine. Raise your hand if you've heard about creatine. Okay, so interesting. So the reason I say that is my first publication in creatine was in 2006. My undergrads weren't born yet, which is kind of funny. But if I were to bring up creatine 10 years ago, everyone would say, oh, it's a steroid and it causes kidney damage. And now the sales of creatine are like 400 times what they used to be. And it's not because of the sports performance angle. It's because we know that there's creatine stores in our muscles and in our brain. And I'm most excited about the brain effects. And so creatine works for men and women, but when we look at some of the specific effects that we're seeing related to cognition, depression, and then overall, and I'll show you a study here, we've looked at creatine across the menstrual cycle with fluid distribution, and now into perimenopause on some of those brain and muscle and bone effects. The reason that I think this is cool is that 5 grams of creatine from a supplement is the same as consuming about 5 pounds of beef. I like beef, but probably not 5 pounds of it. And so that doesn't mean don't eat the food and our body makes it, it's how might we supplement to maximize that. There was a study that just came out about 2 months ago that showed improvements in Alzheimer's effects in the brain with creatine supplementation. So in kind of a suppressed scenario like perimenopause with aging, there might be more benefits. Okay, and this is from a study that we're doing right now, and I wanted to share this because we are the only lab in the country that are looking at things like this in perimenopause and resistance training. And I just wanted to show you 2 things. These are midlife women that come to us twice a week. And in 6 weeks, you can see there is a 50% increase in leg press strength. So this woman is squatting, leg pressing 700 pounds. and benching 85 pounds, and you can see how much stronger they got. More importantly, there's improvements in muscle quality, and the way I describe that is how we measured in the lab. Instead of a muscle looking like a ribeye, it looks now more like a fillet. You're never gonna look at me this thing. But it's improving the quality, not just the volume, and we're seeing that very quickly, and that significantly relates to cardiometabolic health. The other things that we're seeing, you can see this individual gained a 3% increase in lean mass and lost 1.2% in fat mass. They didn't change weight. So one of the things we do a lot is people will come in and say, oh, I want to lose weight. And we say, you don't want to lose weight, you want to lose fat and gain muscle. But unless you don't measure that, they come in and think, oh, look, they lost 1 pound, they might be frustrated, but they had significant body recomposition. The other thing that we're seeing is they had significant improvements in bone, which you don't typically see. And these midlife women are seeing improvements. And this middle part too, we started to look at cognitive changes. So the impact exercise we know has on the brain is astounding. Okay, so then as Jennifer asked, I was going to talk about perimenopause, and I knew that the majority of this room would not be perimenopausal women, but I just want to throw this out here that, why should you care? I'm surprised more people are not talking about perimenopause. Think about those of you that are still working or the women in your life that you know. Menopause costs American women billions of dollars and the companies that they work for, particularly related to lost work and symptoms. And I think we're in a really cool phase now where more women are talking about it. But for all of you males in the room, think about, have you asked or had a question with the women in your life about symptoms of perimenopause? Most women think, I'm going crazy. And here, what am I experiencing? But a lot of times those conversations can be super valuable. And then I wanted to share this too. Roughly half of the women who were surveyed in this specific survey said that menopause symptoms impact their work performance. And so it's really something we need to care more about, not just for the health and quality of life, but also when we think about the impact for our everyday, day-to-day. And so we are working on that. The other thing that I think we continue to see is there's lots of conversations around hormone therapy. Now we call it menopause hormone therapy. That's not going to fix it. You got to combine it with exercise and nutrition, and how do we help these women feel better physically, and then the mental component is also something not a lot of people are talking about. Okay, so then just a couple takeaways, and I can't wait to open it up for questions. Hopefully we stimulated your brain. I always remind people to prioritize yourself, and I think you guys have done that. I'm hoping like that phase of life will continue to do that when we have a little bit more time. Move daily, start small. That 30 grams of protein at each meal out of vegetables, especially at breakfast if you can. Drink half your body weight in ounces, and then check in on the women in your life, right? And even, there's a funny meme that like a lot of perimenopausal women also have young girls starting puberty. I have little boys, thankfully, but we have a lot of conversations in my house actually of like, hey, if you see a girl and she has blood on her pants, what do you do? Because like it's about changing the culture and having those conversations. Yeah. So here's just a little funny, thing to think about. If you drink a gallon of water per day, you won't have time for other people's drama. You'll be too busy peeing. So as a reminder, just stay hydrated, and happy to answer any questions.
Since I am speaking for the perimenopausal women in the room, just thank you for this research. I mean, I do think that compared to women who are older than I am, we are going to benefit from all of the research that hasn't been done ever. So thank you, and all the other women out there who are paving the way so that we can learn and we can all grow as a society in this. You did mention hormone replacement therapy briefly, so just wondering what is your take on that, and then I'll pass the mic to someone else.
Yeah, so I'm a PhD, we have collaborators that do hormone replacement therapy. I think in the bright side is we're having more conversation and more people are having resources, but I think it's still really difficult to find a provider that can help. So one thing that I'll kind of slightly answer your question, one thing we're doing in the lab is at-home daily urine trackers that started actually in fertility that everyone can buy. Like we use Anido, Mira, and Uva, and it's been really empowering for women to just get daily hormones to see how is it changing. And the other thing that I see is we, as perimenopausal women, are a different generation. We're more active because of Title IX. And so it allows us to see things like exercise and sleep and hormone therapy on those changes in hormones versus just that single point in time blood draw. So to answer your question of like, we just are more empowered, and the hope is that we can ask more questions. There's a time and a place, and the science is really interesting on hormone therapy. I think it's really hard for women to get access to without paying a lot of money. So even in a place like this, like we are trying to build a women's health center to bring all those providers together in one place to help with that.
I'm on now.
There you go.
Okay, thank you so much. So there's no secret, I'm not a medical doctor, but I've heard many of them say that when they go to med school, they spend probably 0 hours studying nutrition and probably the same amount studying exercise. What would you like to see as testing that's done regularly to reflect nutrition and exercise in our wellness as we age? Because if I go for a medical checkup, these things are not.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. I don't know if you guys, have you seen the recent 60 Minutes with Peter Attia? Yeah, so like I actually went and chatted with Peter a few weeks ago. I don't think everyone needs VO2 max testing and all of that, but I do think some measure of fitness. Oftentimes it's just a matter of resting heart rate or change in heart rate as we move. So how much are you training? I am a big believer that we should know our body composition well before our 60s because that drives nutrition. So, but it's not prescribed until you're 60. And so those two components, like thinking about classically how our healthcare is set up, a couple of those measurements, and then I don't know if you, I'm not promoting functional health, but like a pretty comprehensive blood panel that you can track over time is really valuable because what's healthy for you might not be my healthy, and then over time we can see that. So in one sense, I don't know how much healthcare is going to change, but on the opposite side, I think we have a lot of resources to say, I'm gonna go do this by myself. Like, I don't know if you guys, even in Chapel Hill, there's a couple places you can go get a DEXA, you can get your cardiovascular health. Those are really good things, and now you can do at-home blood draws. And so those little things, to me, it's more about tracking changes. Where are you right now, and where are you, especially if you're feeling unwell, you can see what your baseline is.
Is there any value in a one-a-day medicine? I mean, one-a-day vitamin, you know, the quality, quantity, do they help, or is it just a game?
Yeah, no, so I think a multivitamin, I look at it as like a good insurance policy. Like I wouldn't spend a ton of money on a multivitamin, but I think like I would go for like a plant-based high quality brand, like a brand that has some reputability. If you don't need it, you're gonna pee it out, and if you do need it, you're going to absorb it. So I like a daily multivitamin, especially as we age, it's hard to get enough of. Yeah.
So, you're correct.
A little louder, yeah.
We don't get, good, as a medical, we didn't get no nutrition, Joe. We don't get any nutrition training at all. My wife is a nurse and got 20 times more than I did, and she reminds me every day. So,
So listen to your wife.
Yes, I do. And then as far as what Tom was saying, I was going to ask you, like the Cosmo study would show that a daily vitamin a day, like Ascension Solar, what they were using in the study, but it did actually decrease cognitive decline, which was a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then my last question was like, what's your feeling on blueberries? Are they like the magic food that everybody's supposed to be eating?
Yeah, so like you guys know your diet better than I do. Like I bring a multivitamin every time I travel because I know I don't eat the same. Most days I get enough food, so I'm not worried about it. So like I do think a multivitamin, I just wouldn't spend an arm and a leg, like just a general one. And then, yeah, I think it's funny that everyone talks about how great red wine is, when in reality blueberries have a ton of antioxidants and fiber, but that's very similar to any berry. So eat more berries, and what I would say is when blueberries are in season, eat more blueberries. They have a ton of benefits and antioxidants, but so do a lot of other berries, blackberries, raspberries, etc. So yeah, definitely eat blueberries. You don't need anything fancy.
Yes?
Yeah, there we go.
For the Zone 2 versus the Zone 3, 4, etc. I saw recently when Peter Tia kind of outlined his week, and he still does about 80% Zone 2 and about 20% of the higher levels. But Dr. Rhonda Patrick has sort of what you were echoing earlier, has been more and more studies with the bang for your buck, high intensity. So do you think ideally, like if you had unlimited time, that what would be the mix? You know?
Yeah, so it's interesting when I sat down with Peter, he trains so much all the time. Like I don't know who has time to do that. I mean, maybe retired folks, but I do worry about the impact on joints. And so Zone 2 is great for a number of mitochondrial adaptations, but we don't need to exercise our entire life. So I like the Zone 2 for blood flow and brain health. The high intensity work, we've seen bigger changes with a lower load on the body. So as the reality, no one talks about the downsides of exercise, but the downside is if you've exercised for a long time, you're likely going to need a joint replacement. And so when we think about maximizing or kind of the impact with the volume, there's an element there where intensity comes in and you can still get the same benefits versus, like, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes it's like, oh, I didn't get my workout in, I'm kind of miserable. When in reality, I'm like, okay, I don't need 2 hours, I need 30 minutes, and then I can go and I still have had that effect. So Zone 2 is great, and we know that it just takes more effort and impact. But the more you've trained, you do need a little bit more volume to increase those mitochondrial changes.
So.
Oh, we're gonna
Oh gosh.
battle it out
here. Let's have Abbie, you're fabulous. I have 3 questions, but I'm old and I deserve it. So
I love it. Okay.
So first of all, just a word about getting people to change, and what's your view of how? Because we have goals, but our behavior is determined by habits. So it takes a lot more energy to start than it does to keep it there. So talk about that. And then I've got 3 things here. One of them is about almonds. Walnut better than almonds?
Do I answer that now?
Yeah.
Any nuts are good nuts. You can quote me on that. No, I'm just kidding. But walnuts have a little bit more omega-3, but you have to eat a whole bag of them. So like, no, eat whatever nut. Like I would say peanuts are just as good. You get a little bit of different quality, but it's not going to make or break us.
So how much walnuts are there? A cup, a half cup?
Yeah, I mean like a cup, but that's going to be a lot of dietary fat, which maybe you need in your diet. So yeah, like a little bit of walnut is great.
Okay. All right. My doctors, I got all excited about creatine. Talked to 2 doctors, my GP and the osteopath that I work with, and who says they are very skeptical of creatine. You run into that a lot?
Yeah, you want to know why?
Yeah.
So it started in a bodybuilding world. That's where we know creatine. Creatine's naturally made. You do have to synthesize it, or like you have to, it goes through your kidneys. But the safety data is very good. The other thing is a lot of people think that creatine causes dehydration, but what it does is it pulls water into the cell and helps prevent dehydration. So I think all skepticism is good, but the safety data is by far one of the best, better than a multivitamin.
Okay, if you knew an eager senior citizen, what volume would you suggest we start with?
Volume of exercise?
No,
Of creatine. Funny that you asked. So my grandmother is no longer here, but I would ship it to her and have her put just a teaspoon in her yogurt or whatever it may be a day. So 5 grams a day.
5 grams.
Yeah, and I say that because now there's good data that shows 10 grams is what we need for brain health. But if you've never taken it, I would start with 5 grams and see what you think.
Finally, if you could explain to the men in the room how to check in on the women in our lives. We'd like you to come back every week.
Oh, goodness. Do you want me to answer that? I think someone is thinking about that, which is good. I said, do you want me to answer that? How do you check in on your wives, the women in your life? So like, in reality, most of the women in your life, maybe they're in postmenopause. Looking at you, I would assume. And so, maybe that's about something. Maybe that's about something. I know, you never know. I have some other follow-up comments on that, but I'll leave it to myself. So then what I would say is, like, think about your daughters. Like, and the other thing, like, in reality, there are big mental health changes. So just check, like, hey, tell me about your experience with perimenopause. We never talked about it. Did you have hot flashes? Did you sleep? The ladies are laughing, but can you imagine if your husband asked you that? Or the other element too, often I'll say to my husband is like, my brain is not working. I need help. Like, I don't need to make the grocery list. Will you just do it? And so I think it depends on your household, but it's not just your wives, it's your daughters, it's their daughters, yeah.
Hey, thank you so much.
Close to you.
I would love to get a copy of your presentation.
Happy to share.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about GLP-1s.
Okay.
You were able to avoid it so masterfully. But how do you deal with the muscle loss, which people, they don't realize when they get on.
Yeah.
And it is a game changer. And somebody told me 4 or 5 years ago in a conference that this GLP-1s are going to change how we treat people.
Yeah.
And every time I read another article, it's about how it is impacting inflammatory diseases, cerebral diseases, you name it. So how are you dealing with that?
Yeah, so we actually have a grant going in to look at that. So GLP-1s are effective, but a couple of things, even how great we're in this place right now, we have all this medical degree and experience, but even like our weight loss clinic here at UNC is not measuring body composition or changes in lean mass. So first and foremost, how is that changing? And then key nutritional things, like a higher protein diet, based on the literature, about 1.6 grams per kilogram of protein, significantly maintains lean mass. And then exercise. No one's combining exercise with our GLP-1s. And so, like, one of the things that we're trying to look at is, and you guys might see this idea, currently you can't microdose, but a lot of people are coming off because they feel so terrible. So how do we swing it the other way of have an effective dose? And then here's lifestyle changes that support it. And so I think the other thing in between why I avoid it is some people are using them when they don't need it. They're doing it for other benefits. And so I think we're going to see a lot of change in the dose. And then how do we combine that with feasible lifestyle exercise approaches, which several groups are working on, even us. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for coming. This is really interesting. In light of the recommended equal amounts of protein at each meal, what's your take or advice on intermittent fasting?
Yes. Okay, so I'm just one person. So, and when I look at intermittent fasting for, let's just say, midlife and older, we know that our muscles have what we call anabolic resistance. And so meaning they need more amino acids to have the same response. And so typically, now obviously male versus female, there's some differences there, but intermittent fasting isn't the first place I would start. And the other thing is, if someone really likes intermittent fasting, I would say change the feeding window. So many people are fasting throughout the day, and then they eat at night into bedtime, when in reality, like, why aren't you just not eating during the day and then fasting the other parts? And then a lot of the work that I do is focused on nutrients around exercise. So then some people will throw exercise in their fasting window, which is also not a good idea. And so, like, generally speaking, we probably could eat fewer calories, but I work with a lot of people who are not getting enough calories and gaining weight. So not where I would start. There's some interesting science, but there's also a science behind it. Like what I was telling Jennifer, if you really want to intermittent fast, wake up and have some amino acids. Like, get some amino acids in the blood so that you're not losing muscle. It's just doing it smarter. Yeah.
Great talk. Thank you very much. Would you mind expanding?
We lost you.
I know. Would you mind expanding on your recommendation about the the amount of fluid per day.
I gotcha. Not enough fluid per day. I can repeat.
I'm a retired cardiologist, and I spent a fair amount of my time asking people to limit the amount of fluid they take a day because of the issues around heart failure. I know the kidney doctors do the same because many people drink excessive amount of fluid. So would you mind just expanding on your recommendations for how much we should be drinking?
Yeah, so there are so many considerations for sure. I find that most people are not consuming enough water. They're consuming other beverages. And so like at a minimum, half your body weight in ounces is just our minimum rate. And it impacts what food we eat, what meds we have. So obviously some considerations based on who you're working with, but that's just what we find in the evidence as a starting point. So there's obviously some scenarios where you would change that. And then I work with a lot of active individuals. I would say you need more than just water. Like we talk a lot about electrolytes and other fluids. That's not just plain water.
Thank you so much.
Have a nice weekend.
I've got email problems with Rotary. Okay. I've not got emails from Rotary. Okay. And every time we fill a fucking try to get it right, it never happens. All right. Let me be the next to try to fix it. Okay. So what do you, I want to get a pen. I want to get your correct one now. I got a pen right in that building. I'll be 2 seconds. And I said, okay. So I said, you know what? Hey, pardon me. How's it going, Mike? Good. Good to see you.
I'm going to take your plate if you're done.
Okay, Dave, what do we got?
Anna, A-N-N-A, at Resolution, RESOLUTEINC.com.
Okay, I'll go in and change that. I'll go and change it tomorrow. I've got house guests right now. Okay, I'll do it today, but anyway, we'll do it ASAP. We'll get it done.
Okay, don't hurt.
And then when you tell me that if you get them. Okay. If you don't get them, please tell me. I should get at least 1 time a week. Right? You should get the scuttlebutt every week. Tell me about who the speaker is. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, man.
And then John and I are taking the kids. We'll be there for 3 weeks, and then I'm going to stay for an extra week and kind of do a little like meditation, yoga retreat. I know. My kids are like, what are kids? I mean, they're complaining about with the layoffs too. Yeah. I have a friend who wants to live in Valley and she was like, it's fine, but
I'm new mayor. The new old mayor.
The new old mayor.
Oh yeah, this is my saying, I said, sorry for the chamber. You don't know. No, it was cute. I was interviewing for 3 hours. We had a blast. I know who I am. And I know who
Where in Puerto Rico?
Oh yeah. I said when I go over, I'm trying to get a t-shirt. He goes, well, show me you can have one of yours. Oh, actually, I just did how much it
There you go.
Yeah, I know you don't want to harass
That would be good to see you. How are you?
Good, how are you? Can I introduce you to my dad real quick? He's just visiting for a couple of weeks. This is Jeff Anderson, the mayor. He's just here for 2 weeks and he's
Oh, here comes Colonials.
Don't you think she should have these since she just won the election? No.
She's going to get a bottle or something.
Yeah, sorry.
Much
I have the hard stuff. No, just kidding.
I'll roll out with you.
Yeah, come on, roll. Roll away.
You roll. Oh, you have yours.
I didn't put it on because I was so weak, but I just kind of popped it.
Presenting their passport to a Chinese.
That feels a little scary. I'll take that. I gotta get out of here, thanks. See you, man, it's good to catch up.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, Bob.
You gotta stick to straight, right?
Yeah, I'll text Jeff.
All right, we'll do.